We produce about 3% of all papers globally, yet represent only 0.3% of the world population. We are doing fantastic in terms of research.
Australia has great universities. We do very well in basic research, but we do really poorly in terms of translation and commercialization.
Universities are increasingly getting incentivized because there's a public push to do this, right? But universities don't know how to do it.
You can have a seed of an idea and place it in the soil of a local ecosystem of a university, but there are gardeners who need to foster those relationships and foster the commercialisation. And part of that is, very importantly, the federal government.
When we started our business, we felt that we weren't going to wait for government to make the changes necessary or the changes that we wanted to see in the world, but rather the private sector drive that. What we're finding now is that without that incentive, and simple incentives such as the access to a carbon credit from the methane or the avoided methane, would deliver that outcome.
You're trying to do something for your own country, and I think it's incumbent on the government to help you, because if the government doesn't help you, then you're forced to look overseas.
Not only do you lose that company and all of the people that go with that, but you then have to buy back those products at the inflated price, 10 times, 20 times the price of that original work that was done and paid for by the Australian government.
Helping entrepreneurs particularly is going to be a way to retain that talent here, which builds the whole ecosystem. The government framed the question in such a way that the risk becomes unpalatable. They can't invest in startups because they've painted it as a loss maker, like it's too risky, and how can they spend government money in that way? And yet they're not really looking at it very holistically, because every startup that's trying to build a product goes and gets parts made, goes and gets stuff machined, goes and gets bits and pieces built and done, which support a wide range of things. So the money that's coming in from the government does end up getting spent in the local economy.
One of the challenges, especially for Australia, is hardware development. That is because here in Australia we don't have strong manufacturing industry, and we strongly rely on China and Japan, which add costs and also slows down the development process.
Really, a lot amongst researchers, commercialization is often seen as kind of a dirty word or selling out. The frameworks for promotion within research organizations are around kind of attracting the most, ARC or NHMRC funding and publishing in, in prestigious journals, not around industry engagement and commercialization.
Universities have a responsibility to the public to translate their discoveries to help the public. And universities have a responsibility to reduce the barrier to commercialisation by facilitating and allowing faculty to hand off their ideas for commercialisation. Creating an infrastructure to do so, I think, should be a mandate within the very high quality universities we have now in Australia.
There is easy and expedient accessibility here to government decision makers. It's a very, very flat structure. Yes, there is a bureaucracy, like all governments, but it's not a complicated bureaucracy. It's relatively easy to get to the people who actually make decisions.
If you look at Silicon Valley and how that's driven by the ecosystem, that's a really good model. Stanford, not everywhere in the US does it like that. When you find out, you think, oh, the US is great. No, it's just a handful of universities.
What was really refreshing in Singapore was the Economic Development Board. They had the unique task of interacting with companies. They would come in there and their approach was, what do you want? Not, this is what we have.
Australia has vacillated, I would say at best, around what it wants to be in the world, like in the resource commodity economy, which is dominant in the Australian business world. We like to dig and ship. We don't necessarily like to value add and finish products and take them down a supply chain and value added process step. We are happy to literally ship rocks. So we've been sort of happy just, being the lucky country endowed with these natural resources, but not intentionally saying we're going to build a supply chain and value chain downstream of that raw material endowment and perfect it and support the entrepreneurs and innovate. And without that intent, you can have all the IP rules and all the venture capital and all the rest that you think you need to put in. And I don't think it's going to go unless we as a nation stand up and say we want to do that.